Welcome to another episode of Animals, Nature, and You. I'm so glad you're here, especially for this episode because I have a surprise guest, a secret guest. Now, perhaps from the title of the episode, you might know who it is, or perhaps if you saw the thumbnail on YouTube, you might see who it is. But I will say this. I'm not going to read a bio because it would give it all away, but I'm going to tease out a little. Excuse me, goodness. I admire this person tremendously. I have known him for a very long time. I remember seeing him in the early years of our careers when he was a bird trainer and bird behaviorist and doing a presentation. Not only was his presentation style incredibly good, but his work with the animals. Over the years, our careers at different facilities, but we still would cross paths. I would see his work and admire it. And then I stepped into the role of being a spokesperson for the organization we were at. And he, as a Spanish speaker and incredibly good presenter, would go with me many times when we would do Spanish-speaking television because I don't speak Spanish. I have a hard enough time with English, and that's not even a joke with my dyslexia and apraxia and everything else. It's not a joke. So I got to see him in that space as well, not only as someone who cares for animals, works with people, but then is presenting and educating. And over the years, our paths kept intertwining more and more, and I got to mentor him into the ambassador role. Then we got to work together as co-hosts for 3 seasons on a podcast. And it's always a pleasure and a joy to speak with him. It is a pleasure and a joy to call him a friend. And so with that, I'm just going to roll into the fact that we are in for a treat because we're going to be talking about birds. We're going to be talking about working with wildlife. We're going to be talking about taking care of ourselves and everything and actually taking care of others and all that encompasses. And even that, as long as this episode's going to be, we probably won't cover everything. And it's kind of weird not having a normal intro, but it's kind of fun because it gives me the opportunity to say this, which I've wanted to say for a long time. Marco, thank you so much for taking the time to be on Animals, Nature, and You.
I am so stoked right now. Ooh, I can't wait, amigo.
So for anybody who might not know, who might have joined Animals, Nature, and You after its inception and after it came out in January, prior to that, Marco and I were co-hosts on an award-winning podcast for many, many seasons. And prior to that, we worked together for many, many years representing wildlife and animals and conservation all over media and everywhere else. And I'm so excited that although we're not working together anymore, to have you on the show, Marco.
Oh, no, thank you, dude. It's such an honor to be here with this new project. And it's, oh man, I don't even know where to begin. I'm so excited. I mean, what you had mentioned earlier, our history, right? I mean, like you had said, people may not know who I am, but I am a native San Diegan. I've always loved wildlife, representing my, not only Latino community, queer community, and all the conservation work that I've done here locally in San Diego. I'm sure many know, but you've had the role yourself as a wildlife ambassador for San Diego Zoo Wildlife Alliance. Amazing experiences, but there's also a lot of work I do in Mexico in particular, where my family's from. I'm really stoked about that. So I can't wait to talk about all of it. And of course, 3 words, birds, birds, and birds, right?
Yes.
We're going to be diving in.
I think that might come up,
I'm ready.
I don't know, maybe.
I mean, I got the mug. It's already ready to go. Here we go.
For those of you who are not watching this on YouTube, he's got a mug that's loaded up with birds, and it says, I just freaking love birds.
I really do. They're amazing.
Well, you kind of tapped on it a little bit, and I'm not sure how many people in the audience do or do not know our history and your history. So could you give us just a real quick, since we didn't do the traditional bio read into the intro, give my audience sort of a quick background as to how you got to where you are. Like, when did you start? What was it?
Yeah, so I'll try to shorten it, but
please do. I know you have a good story that's a good.
I'm very verbose. No, but I started at 16 years old at the San Diego Zoo Safari Park here in San Diego, California, and I've worked as an animal trainer. Back in the day, the term was animal trainer. I went from zookeeper, and throughout all that time, I did a lot of media, and I would support you. That's where you and I first started working together. I would represent the Spanish community. We'd go on a lot of conservation trips together. But there's so years of that, and it was amazing. And then I officially became the spokesperson for the alliance maybe 2-ish, 3-ish years ago. So it's been a a whirlwind of adventures, feathered, furry, scaly, and close to 30 years now when I think about it, which is
Yeah.
really wild. I still feel like I'm 16 again, starting at the safari park.
You don't look a day over 21, so it's fine.
Thanks, man.
So with all that experience and all that you do and have done, and you've been a part of the San Diego Zoo Wildlife Alliance for a very, very long time, like you said.
Mm.
I know, though, because I've worked with you for so long and know you, you will take personal time and head down to Mexico to bring your knowledge and specialties to other zoos and conservation organizations in Mexico that don't necessarily have all the resources we have.
Mm.
And you don't just go there to do things for them. You also work with educating and training other people so they can do the work once you're gone. I would love to hear about how that started and maybe like a couple of your favorite projects you've been a part of down there in Mexico.
No, thank you, Rick. There's actually a person I definitely want to give props to, Yvette Kemp. Well, I'm sure
Yes. Oh, yeah.
you're familiar with her. And I was just thinking you got to get her on the podcast, buddy, because she is epic. She's a force. And she grew up in Mazatlan in Mexico. So she is part of AZAC, so the American Association of Zookeepers. There's a San Diego chapter here locally, and she runs our International Outreach Committee. So it is a group of keepers. We say zookeepers here in the Alliance. You say wildlife care specialists. Well, I'll just say zookeepers this time because I think everyone knows the word zookeeper. But zookeepers from all over the world really getting together to try to help out others. And there we go, perfect, love it. And so that's how it began. Actually reaching out to communities, and particularly with Yvette, because she's fluent in Spanish, that she would begin these programs in Mexico. And she would, at the time, she was a hospital keeper for the San Diego Zoo, and I was working at the safari park. And she'd reach out to her colleagues and those of us who either could speak the language, even if you couldn't, or just have the time and the willingness and the passion to share your skill set, would be part of it. And that's how it began for me. And I would go to places like Parque del Niño in Ensenada. It could be the Guadalajara Zoo in Guadalajara, different places, Xcaret in the Yucatan. But it's a longer conversation, but we gotta share what we know, our experiences, our knowledge base. And I learned a lot too. So it's not really so much of like us going to another country like Mexico and like this is the way we do things there. Like not at all. Like we share unique skill sets that we may apply with maybe for mine, bird experience heavy, right? So I would go in and maybe talk about cassowary work and how I would manage a cassowary under protected contact, which means I don't go in the habitats of how do you navigate working a big bird like that with potential of aggression, because it's a large animal when you look it up, and still be able to keep it healthy and vibrant and alive, and mental faculties firing off, and you're working alongside of it in a protective setting, that scenario. And speaking the language and being a spokesperson too, there was a unique skill set that I could offer part of the team. So I'd done that for so many years, and it expanded, connections, make more connections. And I've done more individual work just on my own, actually going to different zoos and facilities in Mexico and other buddies of mine, just supporting where I can, right? I mean, we're not going to get anywhere if we don't work together. So that's what we just got to do. So it's really like a no-brainer for me,
Yeah, and I want to just point out, and I thank you so much for bringing it up. It's all collaborative. It's you're vet kicking things off, getting people together, you going out there, other people going out there, and then when you're there, and I do recognize I implied that you're going there to teach. You're learning too. Absolutely. It's all collaborative.
Yeah, totally.
We all work together. And that's similar to when I've had the opportunity to go to Africa. Yes, I can bring my skill set there, but then I learn from things there and bring it back. And it's that shared information. One of the things that I always loved, the concept that was, I heard, many decades ago about conservation and why zoos are always working together. Because one of the questions I used to get quite a bit as a spokesperson, like, oh, what's the San Diego Zoo's biggest competition? And and implying what other zoos are we competing with, and it's like no, we don't compete. We work together. It's not like we're two products trying to make a massive profit. The goal is to educate people about wildlife, to do conservation and safe programs properly. The safe, being for the AZA safe. And saving animals from extinction.
Yes,
and it comes about successfully with collaborative efforts, with zoos working together, with each of us learning from each other. And I also do want to point out too, I think there's great value in what you do bring to the table, as with your knowledge of bird behavior and care, but also your extensive experience with communication, which is something that I've witnessed that our culture and keeper work, we want to take care of the animals. We want to do our thing.
Right.
We'll communicate with each other. We get each other when it comes to animal care, but we also need that valuable piece to communicate outside the bubble of the zoo and the animal care world and conservation. So the general public can be aware of the importance of the work that's being done. So I think it's great that you can go out to different areas and share what you know, but then also bring back what you've learned.
Oh, thanks, man. You got that spark too, amigo. And I was gonna say, not everyone feels comfortable in front of the camera, which I totally get. I know you get it, I get it. But everyone has their skill sets, right? And so, I mean, coming out of high school, honestly, it was either going to be like theater acting for me or wildlife, and I wasn't sure where I was gonna go. And there was actually a summer job that started when I was a junior in high school, and I remember the job title. It was a exhibit attendant for a nectar eating animal. And I knew the safari park a little bit as a kid. I maybe visited it once or twice as a child, but I really didn't know what they were talking about. I thought it was butterflies initially. And then, going through the interview, I learned it was a parrot called a lorikeet, which you and I know, but it's a nectar eater. And so there was a unique experience at the time, and that's how it all began for me. And then I applied for the bird show, which was this presentation, very bird heavy, 100% birds, which I'm all about. And then I remember the first day, like going out on stage and doing this thing, and like I have wildlife with me. I'm presenting in front of guests, and I thought like, oh, this is it. This is money for me. This is where I vibrate. So I've been rocking it out.
And I can say too, I remember, I think even before I worked there, I remember seeing you on stage there at the bird show and just thinking, like that is pinnacle work right there. You were right where you belonged.
It felt so right. It's like the stars aligned, and what a cool experience, dude. It was those who remember, it was a show with names. I mean, I'm gonna throw out names that people may remember, like Bruce Nadell, Lolita, the singing parrot, Poncho. Classic. Remember? I left my heart in San Francisco.
Was it Lolita or Poncho that was on the Late Show? Way back in the day.
Both. I think both were on it.
Made it on there? Okay.
Well, okay. Here's a little side.
Johnny Carson.
Yeah, exactly. So, it's called Burgberg Productions. So back in the day, the safari park worked with contractors for maybe putting on a presentation, right? So there was a rare and wild show in the beginning with North American Wildlife, right?
Fun Insight. I did my internship there when I was in college at the Rare and Wild show.
You did? Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, back in it would have been 93.
Wildlife, full circle, amigo. They talk about 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, but we can do that with the zoo. I think.
Absolutely. It's more like 4 degrees in the wildlife world.
100%. What I was going to say. So the company was called Burgberg Productions, or is called Burgberg Productions. So if you're familiar with the movie The Birds, Alfred Hitchcock in the 80s, the trainer for that was named Ray Berwick. So he was an animal trainer in the 80s, and he started this company. So it's a contracted show. Now, Sonny Block is the representative of the organization at the time. So the story is with Johnny Carson and The Tonight Show. Lolita was okay with everyone. Poncho, the singing parrot, did not like women. And by that, it's a longer story, but it was just an experience with heavy male-oriented human beings in his environment. So he was partial to that. And we probably could have worked the behavior of aggression away from women, but it was kind of his red flag. So Sonny did not go on stage with with Poncho. It wouldn't have been a good scene, or maybe good TV. I don't know.
Right, not what they wanted. Not
what they want. No.
So when you were doing the bird show, did you have? I mean, I can say I worked with many ambassador animals. This is where this question comes from. I had my favorites. I had some that it's just a very special connection. Others, it was a good connection, but not quite like my best friend over there. Did you have any of that at the bird show?
Oh, 100%. I've been there for 30 years. So right now I'm just talking the original bird show. Like
just the original bird show.
As a teenager, the number one for me, her name is Phoenix. Phoenix is is a crested Caracara, and that's like my favorite bird ever. We talked about this before the interview, but I sent you a picture, so hopefully your viewers and listeners
I'll put that up for those who are watching on YouTube. I'll put the picture up over the screen so they can see.
It's an awesome bird, and for your listeners, it is a falcon. Think of a falcon the size of a red-tailed hawk, black, with a black crest of feathers, but they're really known for a call that they do, which is why they get the name Caracara or Caracara if you don't roll your R's, which I'm not judging, but I'm going to roll my R's. So it's kind of, the vocal they do is like a brrr, Caracara, brrr, and they throw the head straight back. So it's like, it's a showmanship kind of bird. It's super adaptable. It acts like a vulture. So it was that for me. Crested Caracara, a vulture named Clarence, who was a cinereous vulture. It's this
Big
beautiful,
bird.
right? Huge. It was the first time I'd ever experienced a vulture. They're one of my absolute favorite animals of all time. And Clarence, he was cinereous or European black vulture, they're called. They're unique for feathered eyelids and feathers on top of their feet because they live in very cold climates. And he wasn't the most friendliest, let's say, towards a lot of people. He and I had a pretty good rapport, and I just remember connecting with him, and that was amazing. And the other, I'd have to say, just because of his tenacity and how popular he was with Poncho, the singing parrot, a double yellow-headed Amazon, but he was incredible also. So many personalities too. It was just a really cool experience.
And that's one thing I want to ask about too, because I do know this, and I know you know, but I think it's worth repeating. A lot of times people think birds are just birds, and
Oh
like,
yeah, yeah.
well, parrots are super smart, so I guess that's different. And crows, they're well known for being smart, so I guess that they can have
Mm,
personalities. You have worked with so many different species
mm.
across the board. Share with my audience about bird personalities.
Oh my word, how do I begin? Let me say one thing. No shade to all the humans out there who maybe don't really understand the birds, the reptiles, the insects of the world. Like, I get it, right? I mean, we're all mammals, and it's easier for us to identify with another mammal, right? It could be a big squishy panda, I don't know, maybe a baby giraffe, a puppy dog. There's attributes of the physicality of a mammal that we biologically even connect with, the bigger ears as a baby, the bigger eyes, it makes sense. For me, though, it started with dinosaur loving as a kid, and birds are modern day dinosaurs. But these animals, they can express everything that a human and a mammal can express, or any other mammal can express. We just have to learn how to listen. Something I'm always saying is like all animals communicate. We got to learn how just to read that communication, whether it be physical, maybe verbal, olfactory. There's so many different ways. It's funny because I was thinking, how do I bring up this story? Because right before the interview, because you mentioned crows, amigo, and corvids, ravens, and
Yeah.
crows, magpies, they're incredibly smart. It didn't surprise me when I saw this just now, but I never really thought about it. But I live in Temecula, suburban area, and I was looking out the window and I see this crow land with a bit of food in its beak, and it picks a certain tile and it's caching its food or storing its food under a little tile. Actually, never seen a crow in the neighborhood do that before, but there's evidence of tool usage with crows and with ravens. I've seen play behavior. Clarence, the cinereous vulture. I say vulture, and right now I'm sure people are thinking they're probably picturing a bird spiraling. They're probably picturing a carcass. I mean, I eat pretty animal-like, so I don't look that pretty when I eat my food. But why do we focus on just that? Because I've seen vultures, Clarence as an example, and I don't want to anthropomorphize animals, but I do want to say that working alongside wildlife for the many years that I have, you do build these rapport. So what I'm going to talk about right now, it's because of a long relationship I've had with a wild animal, not because it's domesticated by any
Right.
means. But so, right, so Clarence, our cinereous vulture, again, he could be aggressive to a lot of people, generally more towards females in that regard. Again, we're in that the original bird show was very male centric, so that was kind of what their exposure was, generally speaking. And Clarence and we would come in, he would grab a stick, he would actually, my hand's going to be Clarence here, he would make this sound, and when he sees me in the morning, he would go and like rub his beak all over my head
Oh.
and just be the most affectionate bird. And birds express affection. I've seen birds express love. I've seen birds, there's evidence of crows sliding down the rooftops of snow for play behavior.
Yeah.
All animals, there's evidence of bumblebees doing play behavior. I mean, the expression of emotions is so varied in the bird world, and I would argue in insects and reptiles too. We just don't really understand it as much. It's easier again for us to see that in mammals, I think. But I mean, you and I both know. I mean, the world is incredible. The connectivity that we have with a gharial, this like Indian crocodile. Even just like I think about enjoying the sun. Like I go out in the morning at the zoo, right, and I see these animals out in the sun. There's biological reasons why they're doing it, but their eyes are a little closed and they're just enjoying the morning, and I do that too. So there's there's all this connectivity, right, with all these sorts of wildlife too. So yeah, man. I mean, birds in particular, just I think they're so misunderstood a lot of times and just generalized too, but there's
Yeah.
such an array of birds on our planet, expressing all the same emotions, right?
Well, and I do want to touch on something you mentioned.
Hmm.
We as animal care people, as zoologists and whatnot, we are really honed in on trying to avoid being anthropomorphic, saying that,
Right.
oh,
Yeah.
that one's sad, that one's happy.
Right.
But also to your point that you did bring up in there is that you spend every day with these individuals
Hmm.
and you pick up the nuances of their behavior in the morning versus behavior in the afternoon, behavior before feeding versus behavior after feeding.
Hmm.
If they are being social or semi-social, the fact that they get to recognize and build relationship and rapport with their humans who care for them or other animals in the space that they might share. And it is fair to say we don't want to be like, oh, assigning human attributes to their behaviors, but we can also observe and recognize that there's a shift and change in these. There's a full spectrum and diversity of behaviors and responses and stimulus that occur that we can recognize. Well, they may not be feeling exactly what I would call happiness or joy, but also clearly they're in a state of their body and everything else is expressing what
Right.
we see and recognize as a state of joy or a state of sorrow if they've lost a mate or whatever it might be. So it is a fine line we have to balance, but
Mm.
I do think it's fair to acknowledge that as humans going into these spaces that we recognize on a daily basis, that we can see these individual personalities with an array of experiences as a living creature, bird, mammal, reptile, all of the above. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, no doubt, man. And even as you're talking right now, I'm thinking like maybe I need to rephrase my messaging now. I almost don't even want to say now it's human behavior. Let's just call it behavior. We're an
Right.
animal too,
Right.
right? So why
Yeah.
even separate it, right? So I see happiness there with an elephant. I feel happiness as well. Maybe it's different for an elephant to an axolotl to a human being, but it's all the same in
Right. Right.
one way,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
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 So let me ask you this now.
Mm,
So we asked you about your favorite, friend, and it was Phoenix
mm,
the Caracara. I
yeah.
tried to roll my R's, didn't work.
It was pretty good. I like that.
I
I like
tried.
that.
I
Yeah.
tried.
Kudos, kudos.
And I know that's also one of your favorite species. We'll get into
Yeah.
that. I want to wrap up the interview with that. But for now, as your work has stepped further away from animal care, and I think correct me if I'm wrong, I think the last group or animal you were really in care for before you stepped into the spokesperson role was the cassowary. Is that correct?
Yeah, Cassowary, and then I had a very short blip back at the show working, or at the
Okay.
time it was a show, working with animals that I had known for years and years and years. So, and we can get into that too. About I'd love to talk about maybe the pressures we put on ourselves as zookeepers and wildlife care,
Absolutely. Yeah.
right? And so, because I was at a time then where I was thinking of leaving and dropping everything. I was so burnt out from all of it,
Hmm.
and not that I was not passionate about what am doing, but it got to a point, right? But yeah, that's kind of right before I became the spokesperson. So the spokesperson really for me was an avenue to stay focused and really hone in what I felt were my particular skill sets.
Okay. So since you brought it up,
Yeah,
let's follow
yeah,
that. Let's follow that tangent.
let's do it.
And it's interesting to me because it has come up before. So, gosh, a couple months ago, I had an
Mm,
interview with Alice, who's in the UK, who does a keeper exchange program.
yeah,
We talked about the importance of recognizing that there's burnout in the zoo
mm,
world
there
when it
really
comes
is.
to
Yeah.
there's a lot of compassion fatigue. And then, gosh, probably 4 episodes ago was Alexis with Animals Anonymous, and we talked about how
Mm,
she was facing having kids and having keeper life, which is weekends and holidays, and the challenges there, and being able to transition into now doing Animals Anonymous apparel that allows her to stay within the realm of wildlife education, but in
yeah.
her own way. You've brought this up now, and so
Mm,
I want to discuss it because my audience is a mix of people who are in the business, who are peripheral to the business, interested in
right.
getting into the world of wildlife care
Mhm.
or conservation. And I say business in the sense of it is a job, it
No,
is
yeah,
work.
totally. Yeah.
But I would love to hear from you.
Mm.
What's been your experience, and what advice do you give those that are a few years in, 10 years in, 15 years in, and like, I don't know if I can keep doing this. I'm feeling that burnout, that compassion fatigue. What was that like for you? And how did you
Yeah.
navigate that?
As you're talking, I'm trying to like think back at that very moment too, and I can feel the anxiety coming up already about it.
Jeez.
But I wanna point out a few things, and I'm saying this particular for the new zookeepers out there, the new wildlife care people. So we all interpret the world in very different ways, in different spectrums, and in ways of receiving information. So growing up, ADHD for me was something that I still consider my superpower, but sometimes it swayed the other way and maybe created certain obstacles for me. But I'm not labeling it. I'm just expressing it as one of the attributes I had to kind of navigate during that particular time. So not only you have your own mental capacities that you're functioning with, that like everyone has their stresses, but also like and I'm just overgeneralizing. We're all so passionate about what we do, right? We love wildlife so much. I mean, I would skip all my breaks, all the extra, what we consider the fun things, the events, to do what I felt was my job. I need to do more. I need to do more. I need to do more, right? Because it's my responsibility. I have these animals that are, and the way I saw it in my head, and not a healthy way, I might have to think about it, is that these animals are under my care. I'm responsible for them, and so I would push myself further and further. And it got to the point where the energy was being depleted completely from me, and it was affecting my personal life as well. And we could always advance further in our careers. There's always opportunities for growth and evolution, but we also need to learn how to replenish ourselves, or else we have nothing left to give. And so it got to that point. So you really need to stress the importance of finding that work-life balance. You'll be a better human being, I think, overall, not only in your personal life and not but also in your professional life, if you give yourself that balance and that time for yourself. When I became the spokesperson, or I mentioned a little earlier, but let me backtrack a little before that. I was feeling that my colleagues were noticing it. People were mentioning like, Marco, you gotta, because I was trying to do both, amigo. I was trying to be a wildlife care specialist. I was also trying to be a spokesperson at the time, and I thought I could navigate it all together, and it was compiling. It was getting too much. My husband noticed it. I didn't have any energy for my personal life, and that's not fair. But I'm gonna slow down right now, because I want to make this very clear. Like, your personal life is your life. Your work life is just a part of your overall life. So being a zookeeper or wildlife care specialist is not the entirety of who you are as a human being. And that's something I wrestle with all the time. It is a
Yeah.
part of who I am, but that concept in my head meant this is what I am. This is what I do every single day. So again, it got to that point. But eventually I had this opportunity presented to me to take on spokesperson role full time, and that I think was a saving grace for me, honestly, because it allowed me to express myself in a different way, find a different position where I can hone in what I felt were my particular skill sets in communication. And my background is behavior management, animal trainer basically, and so I could apply that work set skills as well in the work that I do, maybe navigating an interview with an animal on camera, as an example, reading the behavior of the animal and the human being I may be doing the interview with, right?
Exactly.
I mean, you know what I'm talking about. And the cameraman and the light man, all these things. So, but I think that's a unique skill set, being a spokesperson for a zoo, an aquarium, or wildlife organization. So I think you and I are very similar in that kind of realm, and the quality I feel and the skill sets that we have. And I think that's why maybe we rock the roles that we do, right, friend? I mean, but being a long story short, I found a role that worked for me, but I put very strong boundaries between work and personal life, because being in this particular role as a spokesperson, you can be called day or night, weekend, non-weekend, holiday, no holiday, but it does give me a little flexibility and a little breath also. But I mean, I did that for myself. No one else did that for me. So just want
Right.
to let those people know that.
Yeah, and I'm going to piggyback a little bit on what you said there, in the
Hmm.
sense of, I think it's important to recognize, and it is really hard when you're in it, because, and I can say that because I've been there, and
Yeah.
so I know.
Yeah.
You grow up with this idea or this dream job, or you learn about it once you're in a different career and you switch into doing it, and it's so many people in the animal care world, keeper world, conservation world. This is my dream job.
Right. Yeah.
How can I feel icky about it now? How can I feel stressed about it and anxiety about it 10 years in, because it was my dream and I don't know what else to do? How
Hmm.
can I turn my back? I feel bad turning my back on my dream job. And I think a lot of what happens is we are so passionate about the work and about the care of the animals, like you pointed out. These animals are my responsibility, right?
Right.
So we pour ourselves endlessly into this, and it's not that anyone is trying to take it so much as we are so passionate about it that we end up overextending ourselves and justifying it, and overextending ourselves and justifying it. And then it becomes the expected norm, and then we run out of juice. And I like what you said. It's being a zookeeper, animal care, whatever, is part of your life. It is not your life. And I agree with that tremendously. I was able to mentor people for a while that were going through transitions, whether it was college to career, career into retirement. I did that for a while. And then I had my own experience of getting laid off and had to really reevaluate. It's like, what am I if I'm not employed by a zoo, because I've done that for 30 years?
Yeah, man. No,
but I recognized that the job didn't define me. I defined the job, that I brought my skills and talents into that role. And that's what I am, not with whether I'm working for someone else or not. And not that that's something that everybody can do, but I think the value in hearing your story, Marco, and the value of sharing this information is that perhaps it might reach the ears of someone who's not there yet, or is on the cusp of that, or in the throes of it. And then maybe the conversation I had with Alice, or the conversation I had with Alexis, or this conversation with you gives them the opportunity to maybe step back and go, okay, how am I treating myself outside of work? How am I managing the other parts of my life? And also then, is there another opportunity that might come up? And maybe the answer is no right now, but in 4 months, that opportunity might be there. So if you start putting it out there, start looking for those opportunities now, it's a space that could grow into, or you could find that avenue to still be who you are, what you're passionate about, what you've always wanted to do. Maybe just shift gears a little bit. So it's important. It's important, because I think you and I see a lot of people who are hit hard by this.
Yes, and I totally get it. I mean, I still wrestle with it every single day, like every single day. It's something I mentioned to you because I look towards you a lot, because you were one of my mentors too, Rick, and showing me how to navigate this kind of experience. And so what clicked for me, and maybe it'll click for other wildlife people, is the thought of I need to basically just train my brain like it's an animal, right? These assumed behaviors, they set up the environment to a certain standard, which just only enhances and encourages these unwarranted behaviors. And so I started thinking of my brain as this animal, like in the morning, okay, instead of doing this, we're going to reapply a different strategy. And so a simple thing for me now, just taking a breath, I write 3 things down, like I did this morning, of things that I'm grateful for. And I also, because it helps my kind of brain to calm down a little bit, I write haikus. And that kind of calms my brain now as well. But just, you gotta find that breath, and I swear you're going to be a better human being for it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I love to hear that you do that. And I know we've had this conversation about your gratitude, and, it's something that when I went through a real rough spot several years ago, it is something that I started at that time. And, at first it just feels
forced. A little bougie.
It feels forced.
Right.
Okay, I'm gonna be saying thank you for my cup of coffee. I'm glad I heard
exactly,
a bird sing.
Man. I was thinking in my head, like, this is a little tune kumbaya. I don't know if this is gonna work.
But it does. It does.
No, it totally does.
Yeah, like any shaped behavior, it takes practice and repetition and reinforcement, and then all of a sudden you're on the other side of it. Like, I need to sit down and write this because this is important to me, and it helps. It definitely helps. Absolutely.
It was interesting because I didn't mention I was doing this with my husband prior, and so a few days had gone by, and I think it was like the 3rd or 4th morning. He just brought up, like, I've noticed your mornings seem a little calmer, you're not as wound up, and then I told him what I'd been doing. He goes, I've definitely noticed it, so that really spoke to me. Like, it's there's someone outside observing it. Yeah, exactly.
Reinforcement.
Right. Highly reinforced. Yeah.
Yeah, there's great value in that. There's great value in that. And, I think we could probably have a whole nother episode on self-care, and maybe we will do that.
Yeah, no kidding.
but I want to jump back towards the animal side of things.
Right.
I wanted to ask you, before you stepped into the ambassador role, and you were working with cassowaries, and you also ended up working at the show there for a bit before jumping fully into the ambassador work, was there a particular individual feathered friend that was just your homie, your best bud, your work partner before you stepped into more the ambassador role?
I love the pitch, amigo. I mean, you know what I'm going to say, but oh
I
man,
know, but I want my audience to
I
hear it
know
because I love hearing you talk
Southern.
about
Oh,
it.
you guys. I mean, okay. So let me like, organize all these crazy thoughts in my head. So I love all birds are amazing, right? As a kid, though, like it started with dinosaurs, right? I can mention a little. I'm an '80s child, by the way. So a Captain Planet, Ninja Turtles. Even there was a dinosaurs from space cartoon that I was into. There was all these things, so I had a love of birds of prey for one. I'm a big fan of carnivores and especially birds. So birds of prey are no brainer. Hawks, eagles, falcons, owls, raptors in particular. But also I've always been a huge lover of ratites. So like ostriches, emus, kiwis, cassowaries. These are amazing. These flightless birds. So if your listeners aren't aware, which most I'm sure are, but in case you don't know, these birds are not adapted for flight. They've evolved in a very different way. So it could be a rhea in South America that looks very similar to an ostrich, and by that, just by the shorter wingspan, ostriches are going to be quite a bit taller. They all have very long legs. This particular animal is called the cassowary. There's the northern, the southern, the dwarf, right? I worked with the southern cassowary at the safari park. Oh man, what a dream. I was in the bird department at the time and kind of newish to the area. And I came in from, and I'm saying this more specifically for the people in the industry, that I came in as at the time, an animal trainer because I wanted to learn all the skill sets as a zookeeper, because there was a divide, and maybe in some areas in the world there probably still is, but we're trying to blend all these crafts together, right? These skill sets. But so I went from being a behavior oriented individual to learning how to maintain habitats and breeding practices and all these other things that are nuanced, being a zookeeper. And so one day, because I'm a relief keeper at the time, management calls me up and they go, and we have this new habitat called Australia, Outback, a walkabout in Safari Park. And they bring me in the office like, Marco, so we're thinking, with this opportunity, would you be interested at all of being the main zookeeper for the area of Australia, which meant that I would be working with the cassowaries, right? And I'm trying to be like, no, dude, I was trying to be way cool about it. You would have been very proud of me. I was like sitting back and just nodding my head, like, and I think my line was something like, yes, I think I welcome that opportunity. Thank you so much. Something like that. But inside, I was like, what? This is wild. This is crazy. I get to work with a cassowary. And not only that, I'm sure they would say it, and it's not ego at all because of my behavior background. This is a newer bird species for the bird department at the time. They've had dwarf cassowaries before, but this particular bird required a different way of navigating the space. And I mentioned protected contact earlier, but, under AZA, American Association of Zoos and Aquariums, protocols, guidelines of certain wildlife, we, in a accredited zoo or aquarium, for instance, we would never go, wildlife care staff would never go into maybe a habitat with a lion, with an elephant, a gorilla. That also includes southern cassowaries. Now I can talk forever about them, so I'm trying to minimize this. But most people know them for
let
being.
me ask you. Let me ask you.
Tell
this,
me. Yeah, lead it.
I'll have pictures up of cassowaries
Yeah.
on the YouTube video, but I want to ask you, what about the cassowary is your favorite thing? Because I know you. I know how passionate you are, how much you love them. I know we can give an hour spiel on them. There's tons of great information. And maybe I'll have you back to just do a cassowary episode.
Okay,
but I want to hear.
Yeah.
I just want to hear from you, what was one of or a couple of your favorite things about working with this species?
It sounds really odd, but the first thing I want to say is the calmness of them. Most people think of them, well, the internet sensationalizes them in a particular way. You would see world's most dangerous bird, and not to discredit the potential of an injury with a cassowary, because they have an inside nail about maybe 4 inches long, perhaps even longer if it's a female. And when you see them running at you at, close at 30 miles per hour with these giant legs and this razor sharp long nail, I get it. But what I tell people is like, think about a rhino. I mean, we all know not to piss off a rhino for obvious reasons. Right. I would say the same thing about a cassowary, but why do we got to hype up the bird version just because it's a bird? So the calmness, Rick, honestly, like, so there were days, oh man, my favorite day. So I want everyone, like, picture your head like you're going into this like Australian rainforest. You're the only human being, and it's a protected space. So I have a walkway and I have barriers, visual barriers, physical barriers between me, but I walk in this space and I have a male cassowary on my left and I have a female on my right, and I'm cleaning pools. And what I mean by calmness is you don't hear them. They're walking quietly. If you ever seen a leopard or a jaguar walk through a jungle space. I'll use my hands as an example. They go forward, they pause for a second, they move back. They're feeling the space out. Maybe they don't want to trip over a leaf or make a sound. So cassowaries will do the same thing, and they walk with it. And it's my emotions putting it on it, but they walk with a tenderness about them, and there's a peace about them. They're a solitary animal, and just watching them maneuver quietly through a rainforest, it calms you so much.
And I want you to share also, how much roughly do these birds weigh?
A male, being smaller, is going to be roughly 90-ish, maybe close to 100 pounds. Females, way bigger. I'm talking over 6 foot tall. I'm talking like over 120 pounds, if not more, depending on the female. It's a big animal.
And yet you're explaining to us how they quietly maneuver through a rainforest. And I love that about so many species because they're so well adapted for being in their own environment.
Right.
That I think movies and TV sensationalize this big animal makes boom, 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 all this ruckus and noise and crunching of the leaves. And yet you can have a 100-pound bird with these giant feet walking through leaf litter and not make a sound.
Not make one sound. There was a colleague of mine when I first started working with them that explained the calmness and peace about them to avoid conflict. Is a fellow's bird keeper went to Australia and got to see a southern cassowary. I've yet to see a southern cassowary out in the wild. And the story the guide gave was that we have this male cassowary in this habitat, takes this route every single morning, quietly and peacefully. One day a tree fell, and instead of trying to maneuver around the space and figure it out, he's like, no, I'm good. I'm gonna go way over here and make my new path. And just the idea of that to me, and they're so connected to the forest, like you said, and it's just breathtaking. So calmness for one, but also, because I think it's close to how I am as well. Like, I feel like I'm a calm individual for the most part, but those who know me, like, I got a temper. So I do also want to acknowledge that aspect of the personality also, even though I try to downplay it because it does get overly sensationalized. I mean, if push comes to shove, I'm going to shove, and maybe verbally, and that's a little bit of my nature too, the dichotomy of it. But that's also what I love about the cassowary also, for instance, females are known to be a little more, a bit more aggressive. I'm downplaying a little, but yeah, they're more aggressive than the males. And I remember working with the youngest female at the time, Yara, it was her name, and is her name, and she was a little chick at the time. And so she was going through quarantine at the hospital, and we were working myself with the bird staff and the hospital staff to establish certain behaviors that we could start working her up. And this was an attempt to have established behaviors when she moves from the hospital setting to a habitat setting to be able to navigate the space in a nice way for the human and the bird. So by that I mean maybe going into a transport carrier, maybe shifting from one spot to the other, maybe targeting, as an example. So we were working all these behaviors. She was great in the hospital space during quarantine. Then she moved to my habitat that I was managing, which is the outback in Australia, right? And I know her. She knows me. It's been a few weeks now. We've established these behaviors. But I remember the first day she came out, she's a little thing too. Like, picture like maybe like 2 feet tall, brown, little lines on them. If you ever seen a tapir baby, by the way, it looks very similar, like
right,
lighter,
the camouflage,
right? Yeah,
the
the watermelon kind of markings, right? So she had that. So she's walking out the space. She's walking up from the back area. She sees me, and she knows who I am, right? But she sees me, and then she decides to take 2 steps quietly, and then all of a sudden jump up like maybe 5 feet sideways, and then with her little baby feet, bah, 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 on the chain link, which is right exactly where my face was, But that reminded me, one, again, this is a wild animal. This is why we have protected contact, and two, the expression of all sorts of emotions I want to point out. And again, I'm not sensationalizing aggression for a cassowary, but all animals have a plethora of emotions. So those are kind of my 2 favorite things of the cassowary: is the calmness, but also the ability to really, protect itself if it needs to,
Yeah. I love that. And I also want to address what you just mentioned. I think it's so well said, is that the range of emotions she might have been experiencing doesn't mean that she was trying to be aggressive to you, although on your end of it, it would feel aggressive.
Right.
It might be her way of expressing, I'm uncomfortable in this new space, or I don't know where I am, what's going on, or I'm frustrated with not being where I just was. But because of her size and strength, that could be very damaging to a human. And so then they get this record or this label of being an aggressive and dangerous beast, and
totally.
the most dangerous bird, right?
Yeah.
So
And
it's,
oh yeah. I was gonna say they all have their personalities too. So even the two things I'd
Absolutely.
mentioned, Maka, he's, I know Rick, but he's my particular favorite. And if I was gonna, okay, I make this joke, if we were in high school, Maka would be like, he'd be reading poetry, he'd be sitting under a tree, Yara, it's just her personality. For instance, Yara was maybe the kid behind the library, if you know what I mean. But yeah, for instance, even growing up, Yara had a favorite. I called it the kicking tree. Some people need to
That's
just
right. I
express,
forgot about that.
like I go to the gym, right? And it's my way of getting all my emotions out. For instance, I don't listen to world news until after work when I go home, and then I get kind of anxious and frustrated, and go to the gym and just get that energy out. Yara has her own version of that, and there was this. It doesn't exist anymore. Like, let's say a little moment of silence for this palm tree, But it was a particular palm tree in the front of the habitat that she just decided, you are going to be my thing that I'm going to express certain energy and emotion towards. So she would have her blue bees run around, get the energy because she was a little baby bird, and pa 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 kick the palm tree, and eventually the palm tree didn't survive that expression
Yeah.
of behavior. But hey, there you go.
Yeah. She wasn't horticulture's favorite bird.
No, but believe me, I apologize to them left and right. So it worked
Fair
out.
enough. Well, Marco, I do want to start wrapping this up, but before we do go, is there obviously Zoology Marco is your presence on Instagram and TikTok, correct?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Is there
sir. Zoology
anywhere
Marco.
people could go to learn more about any of the projects or work that you do in Mexico or other organizations that they could look at, whether it's a website or other Instagrams or TikToks you
Yeah,
would
well, I
recommend?
mean,
Or
as far as the international work, I will point out, especially if there's any people under wildlife care that want to get connected in this kind of work, reach out for your local zookeeper chapters. I mentioned the American Association of Zookeepers. There's an international outreach committee, but also even just creating your own connections, which I eventually started doing too. I still love helping out Vet Kemp and that work that she does. If needed, I would definitely jump in and help out. But also, I made my own connections and networking, especially for you. And again, we can talk forever, Rick. I know we have so much to talk about, but I want to say this one little blip for native Spanish speakers out there, and especially because I identify I'm from San Diego. My family's from Mexico. I'm Chicano. Sometimes language can be a barrier. Don't let that stop you. Just because maybe you don't feel confident in your Spanish doesn't mean you can't connect with our community. And I know I'm being very specific to the Latin community, but I've met a lot of Latin people in the wildlife here in the US who maybe feel some kind of way about their language. When I first started doing it, I was scared. I mean, I outwardly said, yes, I can do this. But inside, I was terrified because I was afraid of, messing up. I was afraid of my family, my community, the pressure of it. But I did it. So don't let fear stop you. So if you're interested in this kind of work, reach out, go to zoos in Latin America if that's where your passion is, and start creating those connections. And believe me, you have something you can share and you can learn from them as well. So I definitely encourage you to step out of your comfort zone, get a little scared, but push through it, and you're gonna have a really cool adventure.
yeah, and as someone who's been able to see behind the scenes with you, Marco, I can tell anybody and everyone who's listening or watching, there were times where we were heading into a situation where Marco was the Spanish speaker for the presentation we were doing, and he was double checking his notes. He was checking with family members about proper pronunciation, looking things up,
Yeah.
and that's just it. Exactly what you said. You did it. I mean, the old saying, courage is being afraid but doing it anyways.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's where you learn and grow, and that's where you're able to make an impact. So people who see where you are now, Marco, I really appreciate you saying that. Yeah, you may not be perfect at it, but you do it anyways, because that's what you did. You kept going and pushing yourself, and now you're in the space where you're having so much impact. So I just appreciate you bringing that message to
Thank
this
you.
interview as well. That's awesome.
Yeah, no, I love it. And, I just got to point out too, because this is probably going to, we've been talking, it's going to air in June during Pride Month. And just
Yeah.
a reminder that we are all human beings. Doesn't matter where you are in life. I was told as a child in San Diego, I got in trouble by teachers for speaking in Spanish. I was one of the only Mexican kids in the school. I got harassed and bullied and called all sorts of things. I got pulled from school an hour a day to learn English. So there was a time that I was taught by human trainers that I shouldn't be proud of who I was. So it was a time, and I'm saying this specifically because I know a lot of Latin people.
There's a lot of people out there that are in the same
feel the
boat,
same
yeah.
way, right? Yeah, and so that's why I for a while I lost my language, but I fought really hard to get it back and represent. And what you said, I love that. It's not perfect. And what I tell people, and one particular colleague that I'm trying to get her as excited for this kind of work, is that that's good. being perfect is boring and no one wants being a polis, you know. I represent both communities. Sometimes my mom or someone in the community would tell me like, "Oh, Marco, you probably could have phrased it this way." I'm like, "Okay, that's cool." And I'll learn, I'll evolve, but I'm not going to be ashamed of who I am, you know. So I just want people to feel that not only in Latin community, but also in the queer community as well in particular. I know you wildlife people out there know, but in case listeners don't know, there is queer expression all over Mother Nature. Coming from a religious kind of family growing up, you know, it's something I contended with, but it is in nature. It is natural. I want everyone to celebrate who they are, you know, and just be you.
I appreciate that, man. And,
Yeah,
I love you tremendously. And I'm really, really glad to finally have you on the podcast. We are going to have you back on again, I think, for like a Cassowary episode or something, because there's just so much to talk about.
Awesome.
But thanks, man. I really appreciate you taking the time to be on the podcast. And it's just fun to be in this setting with you again.
No, thank you, Rick. It was such an honor. Thank you, amigo.
And thank you, dear listeners. As you know from listening to us talk, Marco and I have a great rapport. We've known each other for a very long time. We've worked together in many different capacities. And before I was laid off, we worked together as co-hosts on the podcast for the San Diego Zoo. So it was a treat. It was a real treat to be back with him in this space. We've hung out, obviously outside of work and gone to dinners together and whatnot, and kicked around the idea of what we would talk about. There's so much he knows and he's passionate about that it's just great to hear his stories. So a big treat to be able to have him on Animals, Nature, and You. And I appreciate everyone who's been joining us here on Animals, Nature, and You. It's been so much fun. And of course, the things we talked about, I'll put links down below for more information about cassowaries and caracaras and Marco's social media. Of course, you can find me on my website, zoologyrick.com, and all of my social media is linked down below too. I do want to ask, if you don't mind, if you do me a favor, I mentioned this a while ago and I want to mention it again. If you happen to have a couple extra seconds, would you leave a review or add some stars to wherever you're listening to this podcast? If you're on YouTube, maybe leave a comment or a thumbs up. These things don't bump it up in the algorithm or do anything other than show others who might be scrolling through looking for something to listen to or watch that other people are enjoying it. So wait, I should probably stop and look at this too. It's an opportunity for us to get the message out there about the different wildlife, animals, nature, conservation, all these great stories from everyone that we've been interviewing. It's a way to help boost that in the sense of, I guess, social boosting, to draw in the idea that maybe I want to look at that too if I've never seen this before or heard this before. So I'd appreciate that. I appreciate it quite a bit, actually. So with that, we're going to wrap it up. I do want to say again, thank you all so much for joining me. Animals, Nature, and You is on Instagram. It's the only social media we have. If you want to connect there. And of course, you can leave some fan mail if you want. If you're listening to this on a podcast player, the very first link at the very top says send fan mail, and you can reach out and get a hold of me there, ask a question or have a show idea or whatever it might be. Or maybe you don't do social media at all, so it's a way we can stay in touch. Either way, I do appreciate it. And last but not least, of course, make sure you subscribe or follow wherever you're listening or watching, because every Tuesday we have our 10-Minute Tuesdays, me doing a solo episode as a follow-up to our previous interview or talking about a species or a current event. And then every Thursday, like today, we have an awesome interview with an awesome person doing awesome stuff. All right, let's wrap this up. Have a good one, everybody.